Hi, welcome to the third session of Out of Exile here at Suncrest United Methodist Church. Today we're going to look at a very interesting story of folks who experience things very differently from Ezra and Nehemiah. And we're also going to have a conversation with Betsy, one of our local experts, who's going to talk to us about practices for the Delta variant and what's happening in our community and state. Next time, we're going to have our counselor with us, and hopefully we're going to have some news for parents and kids who are dealing with the stresses of this pandemic. Thanks for joining us. We're continuing to look at the prophets Ezra and Nehemiah and gaining some wisdom from them as we experience this pandemic and perhaps come out of it or go back into it as a church together. I'm in Ezra chapter 3 today, and I find something very interesting. Have you ever experienced something in one way? Perhaps you experienced something and you thought it was great. And then you talked to someone else who experienced the same thing, and they said, no, that was terrible. That's what happens here in Ezra chapter 3. The people work so hard and faithfully. They endure so much opposition and difficulty, threat, and they lay the foundation for the new temple. The old temple has been destroyed, that's the past, and they lay the foundation for the new temple. And when they do lay that foundation, they throw a party. Singers, marching bands, yes, all of that. And it says in chapter 3, verse 12, that a number of the people rejoiced because they were so happy. And it also says that a number of the people there that day wept, cried their eyes out, sobbing, loud cries, because they were so disappointed. One group was so happy that their work, their faithfulness, their endurance had led to this happy day. Another group was looking at the work that they had done, and they were so sad because what they had done didn't compare to what they used to know and what they used to experience. Some people were just sad. One of the things that we need to do here at Suncrest is just to recognize that some of us are ready to be happy and to get to a new normal. And some of us are going to be sad because the new normal doesn't compare to what we used to know. And that's all right. We need to make room for both. In fact, it might be that one day we're happy and ready for the new normal, and the next day we might be sad about what has been our past, our glorious past. Here's the key. In this passage, whether rejoicing or weeping, the people stick together and they keep working together. They keep working. They keep laboring. At times they laugh and rejoice and celebrate, and at times they weep, but they keep at it. There's a great work to be done, not just for us today, but for those who will come after us. Amen. I'm with my friend Betsy, and we are getting caffeinated for the rest of the day. And Betsy, if you would remind folks who you are, what you do.
Sure. So I am an associate professor of clinical pharmacy at the university. I also attend here at Suncrest United Methodist. Prior to pharmacy school, I went to West Virginia Wesleyan, and I'm just here to try to help people work through these times and to have a discussion to see maybe how we can help our congregation feel comfortable as we all come back to church.
All right, question number 1. This is Wednesday,
Yes.
And yesterday the CDC came out with some updated recommendations, and sometimes that confuses folks when the recommendations change. But am I correct in saying that science adjusts to the realities that are present in our communities in the country, and they update the recommendations?
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely correct in saying that. And, change is hard for many of us. I like to have a regimen, right? You get up at this time, you eat at this time, go to bed at this time. And, if we've learned anything through the past months and year and a half, we've learned that unfortunately, things do change. And sometimes the positive thing is that it changes for the better. But with the pandemic, the other thing that we do know, and history tells us this, is that we do need to sometimes shift a little bit. And sometimes you take 2 steps back, and sometimes you take 2 steps forward. It's similar to anything in nature. So I'm a nature lover, and I think about deer. And if deer kept the same coat year-round, would they make it through the harshest winters? No, especially in West Virginia. And so with this pandemic, what I think is, if we kind of think about this, is sometimes we have to change our coats a little bit. And some of us like warmer weather, and some of us like colder weather. If we're prepared, we have to be prepared for it. Nobody likes this pandemic. I think all of us will agree that we want to get this behind us. So right now we're changing some things, but I think what we're going to see is that's going to help us, get to the end of these days here with the pandemic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So recommendations were made yesterday about the consideration of increased mask wearing in certain contexts. What was it that the CDC and the scientists, et cetera, are seeing that caused them to make that recommendation?
Right. So yesterday, if our congregation or other friends that might be viewing this aren't familiar, our Centers for Disease Control kind of stepped back a little bit and said that even vaccinated persons, that they recommended that vaccinated persons, again, wear a mask inside in certain situations, and really looking at the risk of certain areas of our country, particularly where there are high rates of infection and low rates of vaccination. And that is not surprising. So when we look at what has recently happened in a neighbor state of Maryland in June, and this becomes real to us because Maryland is our neighbor, especially here in Morgantown. In the month of June, Maryland suffered a pretty big loss of life due to COVID-19. And that is sad, and we mourn that. Every single patient who passed, every single person who passed of COVID in the state of Maryland in the month of June was unvaccinated. What does that tell us? Because there are some vaccinated persons, especially with the new strain of virus, Delta, that may stand a chance of still getting sick. But we know that those people aren't going to get as sick. They're not going to end up in the hospital as much or at all, and certainly they're not going to die. Maryland releasing the information that said every single person in the month of June that passed was unvaccinated was a very strong indicator that we really need to look at vaccination status again. We need to look at masks again. This particular variant has a much higher degree of transmission. And that, again, vaccinated persons, there is still a chance, even though we might not be sick, we could still carry it and spread it to an unvaccinated person. I need to do everything in my power to keep you from getting sick. So if you're unvaccinated, we're, even though I might be vaccinated, we're both vaccinated. Wearing a mask when we're out in these larger groups in areas where the numbers aren't so good. That's what we need to do.
Answer a question for me, if you would, from your personal point of view. If you were a fully vaccinated person,
sure,
and if you were masked, would you personally feel safe in a worship setting, a worship service?
Wearing a mask. Yeah, I'll talk about that. And I'll speak on behalf of myself a little bit and what I would do and what I intend to do personally. I am fully vaccinated. I fully believe the vaccines are working. I live in a household, though, with a child who still is unable to get the vaccine. And I would intend to bring him to church. He will be wearing a mask, and therefore I will also be wearing a mask. For two reasons. One is to make him feel comfortable, that he isn't alone. And I do that with him. Any store we go in, I still tend to wear masks when I go in locations that are going to be busy, because I am around a lot of people in those places that are very busy. I have an unvaccinated person in my house, so I have to, make him feel comfortable, but also still keep him safe. So because we know that the Delta variant is more transmissible, one person again could potentially, infect up to 8 people. I will be wearing a mask and be happy to do so. I think, we're going to get through these days, and, I know we're tired. We're so tired. If there's any way to make this fun, I don't know. I'll find, the most colorful mask I have one that has a big heart on it. That'll probably be my church mask. I have different masks, I think, for different things, which is kind of weird to think about. But, I think we get through these days. And so, kind of in conclusion, I encourage our congregants, come back. We want to see you. I encourage mask wearing. I know it's not comfortable. I get it. I've been in them 8 hours a day some days, and I understand it. But they're the armor right now that God has given us, in addition to prayer, which I firmly believe in. And then that other piece of the armor we need to put on is the vaccine. And I think when we look at that together, we're doing what the Bible has taught us, and we're loving each other, and we're loving the neighbor, and we're blessed to be given our brains and the science to create the technologies that will end this pandemic. We will come out on the other side of this, and I truly believe that. We just need to be patient, and I know people are tired of that, but we do. So.
All of that is wonderful recommendations, advice, and we're thankful that you have the perspective of a person who knows Jesus and wants to love your neighbor, and you've been doing that in your role in our community. So thank you so much, Betsy.
You're welcome. Happy to.
And get caffeinated up.
That's right.
We're not done yet fighting this.
Nope.
Got a few more miles to go, but we're going to beat it.
And we're going to see you on the other side, and we're going to hopefully see you back in church. So look for me. I'll have the kind of all different color mask on with a big red heart, and I'll hope to see you soon. Bye.
Thanks for joining us today for Out of Exile. Whether we are rejoicing or weeping today or tomorrow or the next day. We are together, and together here at Suncrest, we're caring for one another and for our neighbors and for our community. We're coming out of exile, and we are being the people of God together. Join us next time for the final session of Out of Exile.